Well, this is a very exciting morning for us because we're about ready to take our first flight of 2024.
Yippee!
Tanya's very excited, and she is completely healed now with her total hip replacement and her broken wrist, which we got about 6 weeks ago in Munich when she slipped on the ice. So now we're ready to hit the road again.
That's right, and I brought hiking poles.
Hiking poles, yes, to make sure that you do not lose balance.
Exactly.
Yes, and we are heading off to Barcelona today. Now, the thing is, we have noticed from some of our viewers that a question that comes up a lot of times is that, our viewers many times they're older people and or about to retire or have just retired, and they continually talk about how they would love to get traveling, but they just are a little insecure. And so what we are going to do is we're going to walk you through this every step of the way. So if for people that are veteran travelers, this may be just old hat to you. Old hat? I am wearing it. But it just is might be some good tips for people that are just a little bit insecure. We are taking off this morning from our home airport, of course, which is Knoxville. One advantage or disadvantage of flying out of a tertiary or third stage airport like this one is that a disadvantage is you're not taking off from a major hub. So we don't live around Chicago or Washington, D.C. or New York or someplace where we can go directly. You always have to take at least one flight and sometimes two, as we are going to do today. So we're flying today from Knoxville to Chicago, Chicago to Newark, and then finally Newark to Barcelona. But we're ready for it, and it is one of the really good things about a little podunk airport like this is that it's not crowded.
It's not chaotic.
Not chaotic. There's like nobody here. It's 9:30 in the morning.
And the drive here is through the rural areas. There's no city.
No, there's no city. We just
no
go
freeway.
No, we just go through farmland. A disadvantage of living here is that there's virtually no Uber or Lyft, and there's certainly no taxis out in the woods where we live, and so you just have to rely on friends. And so you develop a little network of people that will take you to the airport, and you take them, and so forth. So that's the way that goes. All right, so now we're getting ready to board, and we're violating one of our rules. We always take carry-on so that we're very flexible. Not doing that today.
We checked our bag.
We checked our carry-on bag, and even though we're going to have two different transfers.
And we don't have priority on our luggage tag.
That's right. So we're kind of taking a chance that our luggage won't get left somewhere. We have Apple AirTags in them, so at least we'll be able to know where they are. And we have assumed that because we're going to spend over a week in Barcelona, that it'll have at least several days to catch up to us in case it's not there. So, just we're flexible and ready to roll with it.
Let's go.
Okay, so let's go on our first leg from Knoxville to Chicago. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today are some of the anxieties that many travelers, and especially older travelers and people who maybe have not traveled as much, commonly face. So here are some common anxieties. Anxiety number one. One big source of anxiety for travelers of any age is the fear of missing your flight. So when it comes to getting to the airport before a flight, there are basically two kinds of travelers. The first is the traveler who makes sure they're at the airport at least 2 hours before their flight. Then you have plenty of time to leisurely have another cup of coffee, a snack and settle into the anticipation of the day's travel activities. This has always been Tanya's preferred strategy. On the other hand, before I met Tanya 32 years ago, I was the second kind of traveler. That's the one who gets to the airport at the very last minute, not wanting to waste time sitting around a waiting area before a flight. And my theory was always that if I'm not the last one to board and they're about to close the airplane door, then I've definitely gotten there too early. As you can imagine, this style of travel drove Tanya absolutely nuts and caused unnecessary stress for both of us. So I reluctantly changed my arrival at the airport strategy and have gotten to the airport well ahead of flight boarding ever since. Of course, there are two changes in the airport landscape that has made getting there early more important. First, gate agents will often not allow you to board any later than 20 minutes before departure. They'll say that we're closed, that gate is closed. But in critical connection cases, I've found that there can be some bend to that rule. The second major development in pre-flight experience has been the proliferation of airport lounges. Unless you're flying from a small airport like Knoxville, there's usually at least one lounge available for the traveler to kick back, have a coffee, and relax. Many of these lounges are accessible by having an affiliated credit card, and we've taken advantage of these credit cards so that if there's an airport lounge almost anywhere, we have access. Anxiety number 2, missing your connecting flight. This is a big one, and we've all seen travelers freak out over the possibility that they'll miss their next flight and that their trip will be completely ruined. Now, if you're still working and you have an important meeting to attend, a sales presentation you have to make, or some other engagement critical to your career, missed connections can be a real problem. Just think of musicians whose livelihood depends on making it to the next gig in the next city on time. There's not a lot of advice I can give you that will relieve that stress. The same thing applies if you're traveling with a family and it's important to take advantage of limited vacation time, or you have to get back to work or school on time. But if you are retired like we are, the whole ball game changes. If you miss a connecting flight and have to be rerouted or spend overnight waiting for another plane, it's not a big deal. Well, if you have to sleep on the floor in the airport, it's probably a bigger deal, but you probably won't die. Speaking of rerouting, this is another great reason to pack light and only take carry-on luggage. You can really minimize missed connection anxiety if you know that you have your stuff with you and don't have to worry about where it is when you have to change your schedule. Another thing to think about regarding the anxiety of missing your connecting flight is that many times if the flight you're on is delayed for some reason, chances are the connecting flight may be delayed as well. You'll find this often happens during bad weather or some other temporary breakdown in the whole system. Just keep an open mind and know that you'll get to your destination eventually. Enjoy the journey. Anxiety number 3. How will I change money when I get to my destination? The easiest and best way to change money is at an ATM. ATMs are usually located at your arriving airport. The two things to remember are never use the money-changing counters you'll often see at international airports. Their fees will invariably be higher than you can get elsewhere. And 2, look for ATMs that are part of the banking system that works with your own debit card. Look for ATMs that are from major banks and never use ATMs like Euronet that charge an unreasonably high transaction fee. Now you may be tempted because you'll find these Euronet kiosks, ATM machines, all over the place. But don't do it. Also remember that in many places, especially in Europe, you'll only need cash for small purchases. Virtually every place takes credit cards. That's changing over the years. It didn't used to be that way, but now credit cards are used lots and lots and lots. As for using debit cards, your local bank card should work just fine, so don't worry about that. Anxiety number 4, how do I get to where I'm staying from the airport? The easiest way, of course, is to take a taxi. And when you're taking a taxi, just make sure that it is a regular taxi, not a pirate taxi or something like that. When you get to an airport, try to make sure you're going to the place that has a, sometimes they'll have tickets, where you can pay for the taxi ahead of time, or at least they'll know, where you're going. Don't take a taxi from some guy that, and in some places there'll be a lot of these guys that will be coming towards you as you're getting ready to go out the door. They'll actually be in the terminal. Don't mess with those guys. The easiest way is to, in some places like Barcelona, where we are now, just look for one of the many yellow and black taxis outside the airport terminal. Or you can take public transport to where you're staying. Many cities in Europe and elsewhere have metro or trains from the airport to downtown. In Barcelona, for example, there are ticket machines where you can get tickets just from the airport or multi-day tickets for all over the area. Our ride on the Barcelona metro to a stop just a 3-minute walk from our hotel was only €5.50 each. Much cheaper than a taxi and a fun way to introduce yourself to the local rhythm of life in that city right away. Anxiety number 5, how do I figure out where I'm going to stay? Well, of course, you can book an Airbnb, practically anywhere in Europe especially. This can be a good option if you're staying longer than a few weeks, since there's a discount for 28-day stays. But another option that we're taking advantage of this year is staying at hotels from hotel groups that offer loyalty programs. So this year, in 2024, we're trying to use IHG hotels, Marriott's, and Accor hotels, which are more specific to Europe. Using points for stays is a good way to make your money stretch further, because you just keep getting points all over the place. Plus, it's fun because it makes you think you're staying for free. Well, of course you're not. Somehow that's built into the system, but it's like free money. Of course, it's your preference, but at this point in our lives, we enjoy someone else making our bed and cleaning up our bathroom with clean towels every day. We've gotten to the point where we only eat 2 meals a day anyway, and one of those is a late breakfast at the hotel, and then find something else as we go along. I cook all our meals when we're at home, and I'm not too excited about fixing something in a sometimes ill-equipped Airbnb kitchen. Plus, it's always fun to see what new dishes we can try in the local area. Anxiety number 6, where will I eat? One of the joys of travel is sampling the food wherever you are. When you first arrive somewhere, make it simple. You probably will be tired and hungry, so don't stress yourself. Go with whatever is easiest, whether it's something from a local grocery store or a restaurant close to where you're staying, or even in the hotel itself. Wait until the next day or evening before getting more creative. A Google Map search for restaurants near me will usually get you started. Restaurants near me. Or ask Siri. Don't worry, you won't go hungry, at least not for long. Anxiety number 7, I can't speak the local language. How will I communicate? Of course, it's good to know the basics of please, thank you, and where's the toilet in any language, but the spread of English throughout the world has made it incredibly easy to communicate. Plus, there's Google Translate, which can be a lifesaver in communication and actually can be a fun personal interaction with whoever you're trying to communicate with. It can also be very, very frustrating because it'll give you sometimes the wrong answers in either language, but you and the person you're trying to communicate will just laugh about it and you'll make your way through. Anxiety number 8. Will I be able to cross the street safely? This is one of Tanya's anxieties and can vary from place to place. When we first went to Bangkok or Vietnam, it was like you really have to be careful because, it's just mayhem. And bicycles and motorbikes and everything, and you're like a fish trying to swim against the rest of the pod, to get to the other side of the street. Well, that has changed in so many places where there are street lights and crosswalks and You need to make sure that people abide by those, but it's much easier than it ever used to be. And for an example, in Europe, in Germany and Spain, they are generally very easy to negotiate, with pedestrians generally following the walk-wait signs pretty well. On the other hand, New York City is one of the worst places for folks ignoring the walk-wait signs. So the best street crossing strategy wherever you are is to see how the locals do it and try to join them in crossing a busy street. Not good if there are also a bunch of tourists and they're all trying to do what you are, and you're all just going to get smashed at the same time. I've never seen it happen though. Anxiety number 9. If I take a metro, will I be able to negotiate stairs to the street with my luggage? Here's another anxiety that Tanya pointed out. Many times, subway entrances and exits are only stairs, not necessarily with an escalator or an elevator, and this can be tricky with luggage. So the best strategy is to look for elevators when you can, and of course, pack the minimum of luggage if you plan to use metros in getting to your hotel or airport. Same thing with local buses. Anxiety number 10. Will I be safe where I'm going? Now, this is really specific to your destination, but unless you're traveling to an active war zone or an area of civil unrest, generally you'll be much safer abroad than in the U.S. Now, that said, always remember that in much of the world, you are viewed as a walking wallet, and it may be common for you to be a target by scam artists and pickpockets, especially around tourist destinations. Always be aware of your surroundings and use common sense. I should point out that in over 60 years of world travel to over 100 countries, I have never, ever been pickpocketed. Neither has Tanya. The closest I ever came to being pickpocketed was in the Paris metro. But the pickpocket was so inept that I just swatted his hand away from my pocket a couple of times and just looked at him in the eye. He didn't even acknowledge that he had just been made. Petty crime is the most likely unsafe activity to look out for, as well as uneven or broken pavement and sidewalks. Muggings or violent crime is very rare in most of the world. The only time I've ever been assaulted was in Honolulu, where some guy walking toward me on the sidewalk just decided to push me in the chest. I figured he was either drunk or crazy. I was so surprised. I didn't fall down, but it was just amazing. The only time Tanya was a victim was again in Honolulu on a different occasion, where someone grabbed her purse away from her and fled. So that might make you think, geez, Honolulu may not be such a safe place. Well, it's just been our experience. Otherwise, it's been smooth sailing. So those are some of the anxieties that you may have when you travel. And we hope this has been helpful and relieves some of your anxieties. And remember always that the rewards of getting out there and seeing the world far outweigh the minor annoyances. And with practice, your travel anxieties should start just melting away. So until our next video, see you soon and have a great trip. Bye-bye.